if I'll start, and if you guys don't mind, I think one of the misconceptions is accuracy. And I'd actually like to ask that question of you, maybe at the Q&A. I'm curious what you guys know, but I think one of the misconceptions is accuracy. When our agency uses it, or we encourage to use it for clients, it's very regulated. Some of our legal clients, not everything's accurate, but there's a lot of efficiency that can come from it. It doesn't have all the laws right in some states, or some of the nuances. Even down to some of the word choices. Again, if you're using AI for content, there's so many other ways to use it, but just accuracy, whether you have kids at home that are using this, or if you're using it because it's going to help save you time on something for your business, you can get a blog post out. Yes, use it. Have a good editor, you be that editor, and make sure, I'm a human, I'm reading this, does this make sense? But I think just some of the factuality in it, we have to be careful of, because it's not always going to, you might have egg on your face if you don't look at the content that you're creating with it.
Yeah, I'd say accuracy, and it doesn't know. You have to figure out what tool you're going to use. Like ChatGPT is good because it was the first player out there, but then Gemini offers a little bit more unique content, and it's hooked up to more recent search results depending on if you upgrade ChatGPT to 4. So it's just knowing the context to what you need stuff in. So it goes back to what are you using the tool for? Mm-hmm. And we say AI, but really it's a large language learning model. It's not Kit out there. It's not, some cyborg waiting on the street telling you, here's what you need to do stuff. It's not to that effect yet. And to Cindy's point about the content, Google's not ready for that. And that's why I rolled out an algorithm last week to knock down any uninhibited AI generated content. So if you haven't adjusted your content on your website, you probably got hit. Because there is a signature path. So it uses filler words. And so delve and some other stuff, and therefore, and I don't use those terms a lot, but I think there's a misconception that it's just this all-knowing beast, and it is not. It is being fed by us, really. And I think there's reports that ChatGPT, quote unquote, became depressed in December because of our input into it. I guess I got to do work now, and so it's returning stuff that was a little bit less enthusiastic during December. It's here you go. I think AI's misconception is that it's on its own. It's not. We're feeding it.
If I could add on that real quickly, just on the term of accuracy, if you're using AI to build an in-house tool, or to, like you said, using your own consumer data or your client data, and you're building, your accuracy confidence can skyrocket. Because, for example, we didn't have this 18 months ago. We just created this because the opportunity was there. If you're a company and you have leads coming in, how are you filtering through those leads, right? Is there a human? How are we doing that? So we created something called lead generator that takes this, and we've applied AI, and we take the inbound lead data and then turn it out to what's the important things that you are caring about. Are you caring about what their need is? Are you caring about where it happened? Are you caring all the key information? So instead of reviewing a lead and you now have that Cliff Notes version of your lead, and then it can text it to you. If it's a hot lead, it can text it to you, it can email it to you, etc. So there's ways, if you're using AI in-house with your own data and information, you're teaching it what you need, and you're able to give it specific rules to pull this data and put it out. So your accuracy level, if you're building in-house using it, you can feel a lot more confident, I think, with it.
I'm curious, who here would say that they use any sort of generative AI more than a fair amount, whatever that means to you? You use it a lot, you're in a decent amount of your work. Who's using it very little or not at all? Okay, so we got a mix. So as far as misconceptions go,
yes,
I think of generative AI or AI generally as being in a very similar position as far as the broader public is concerned to where Twitter was in maybe up to 2013, 2014. I was really early into Twitter. And there were just years of me being the nerd at a party, oh, you got to get on this. It's so cool. And everybody's stop talking. And, if I go and talk to any person that feels to me like a quote unquote normal person or whatever, they've heard of ChatGPT or whatever on CNN or who knows what it is. but they've just never had any reason to go and try it out. You know, a lot of people are just not early adopters, innovators, whatever it is. And so they really need a use case. And I feel like I still encounter that in the marketing space, because I may work with a project manager, I may work with a designer or whatever, and they're like, I like the way that I do it, you know? And if they're good at it, at whatever it is that they do, that's probably actually fine. But as we said earlier, I suspect that over time, there will be like the next generation of designers or project managers or whatever, that they never had to try anything new. It was just a part of what they learned in a project management class or in the first tool that they used, Asana or whatever it is. You know, there was just a little bit of AI, machine learning, whatever it is, built into the thing. And so they had to have some capabilities that they never had to think about. This is just the way you do things.
So kind of summarize all of your points. It feels like the use case is on smaller data sets or within closer or smaller ecosystems, right? Either with your own data or within Notion using AI to create project management workflows, and that the chat GPTs types of the really generative or the really general ones are what get the headlines. That's what's on CNN. That's what you see Gemini falling all over themselves. But where that work actually may happen is on smaller sets. Would you say that's? I'm sure I'm generalizing too much, but
well, so you know, going outside of marketing just for a moment, I talked with an engineer at Boeing, reasonably high up, 6-8 months ago, something like that. And to this guy, he was actually quite bored with the topic of generative AI, because he's like, you know, we've been doing digital twins for 5 years, 10 years, whatever it is. And he's like, that you guys are just hopping on the, you guys meaning marketers or whatever, business people, I don't know what. You're just jumping on the latest flashy thing, and it's not new at all. And yet, when you have tools like a Jasper, for example, or Avian, or any of these other things that, like, can I use Avian for writing blog posts? Not that I'm aware of, but
and what's Avian?
Avian is an analytics tool, and Adam may be able to speak better to it than I can. But you know, some of these really more tailored tools, they're not going to have a broad use case or user base. But if they've been given more clear directions or limitations, then I'm able to, you know, pay my $99 a month or whatever, and I know it's going to do its job, and I can save myself a lot of time. However, I will say, in my case, and I think generally for my company's case, we get a lot of use out of the general tools, but it is mostly at the individual level. There's not a lot, at least for us, where we are able to use a generative AI tool across an entire process or across an entire team. At least for our company, we're just not there yet.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, our use cases and what we've used it so far is just for that minute set of, like, we need to adjust bids or we need to facilitate, you know, automation here. It's if you were to look at it like a car factory, it'd be putting on the doors or putting on the wheels, right? It has a very specific subset, and you know what the output should be, right? So like if you're making videos or using Runway, you kind of have a general idea because maybe you've created a creative brief or you created an outline of what needs to happen in that, and you kind of know what the look's going to be. AI's, again, going back to our earlier conversation about context and spatial awareness and having to know what goes where, and you know, this evokes warmth, this evokes coldness and stuff like that, and you know, it's a very specific subpath. Like it's part of an automation process where it's putting on the wheels, it's putting on doors. It's not going to build the whole car for you. It's not going to be like, oh, this is your next car that it's going to need to build. It's putting on the doors, it's putting on the wheels. It's got a, again, objective, it's going to fulfill that. Again, it's a learning model. It's not the deep learning cyborg that's on the corner that's telling you what's going to happen. It's just you give it a task and it's going to do a task. That's it.
I'll just touch on. Question?
Yeah,
Yeah, go for it.
what's everyone's perspective on ownership? We talk about using the clients a lot, right? But we've obviously seen some pretty hefty lawsuits being issued because content is obviously being used to train that's not necessarily ours. Or what's your perspective on that as it relates to LLMs or diffusion models or anything like that?
Yeah.
That's tricky. I think that's a really good question because it's going to be very tricky. We haven't seen any regulation yet, and I think we may. I mean, but we haven't for social. So, and I thought we would.
I wasn't bet on it.
No, but I think that's a good point because in terms of, I'm glad you asked that because in terms of content, I say use it. If you need to scale, if you need to save time, if it saves you time to come up with 20 emails of content for your drip campaigns, and then you go and apply your human element, or you're a small business owner, or you have a team and you're writing web content, I don't think there's anything wrong with using that. And I'm saying that knowing that there's not rules for ownership, right? Because it is coming from somewhere. The biggest sense of ownership that I've heard from, to your question, is especially journalists or artists. And because this information is coming from somewhere, and that was one thing in just preparing for today, I was really thinking about, like, what do we need to really think about AI as it relates to humans? And it's like, that information is coming from somewhere. And where is that somewhere? Humans somewhere. So for AI to continue to be good, we need to continue to input good information and accurate information that's unbiased.
And incentivize the creation of that, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's the thrust of the New York Times OpenAI website or lawsuit, right? There has to be a financial incentive for facts to be accurately thrown out there, or AI crumbles underneath of it too, right? So that's certainly going to be an interesting challenge to make sure that the capitalism, the right financial reward is still there for journalists and artists, content creators, etc.
Yeah, and I think Sports Illustrated was found to be generating like 100% AI content.
They fired everybody, and they're still producing content today.
Yeah,
right now. It comes up, and I can't tell the difference. Right, that's a problem.
That is a problem because again, it's coming from somewhere, and depending on where it is, like, is it pulling from Adam Schefter's tweets or the content or something like that? It's going to be hard to tell. But it goes back to there's programs that can determine if it's AI or not. And now the legitimacy of those programs, like, is it finding the pattern of the signature of those tokens together, like it says DEL for those filler words that we look for in the content.
So we have to trust technology to grade technology, right? This is kind of like trusting IAS to grade its own homework on programmatic ads, right? It says on the screen that there's no bots.
Yeah.
Because a bot graded another bot, right?
Yeah. It's almost a different use case for content as it is for images. Like when I first started 2 years ago using Midjourney, there's somebody that was creating these, Marvel babies, and it was a typical like fan thing. And it started gaining momentum. He started getting things. He started printing T-shirts, and he started creating a 3D models like Funko Pops. He was getting really into it, and then you never heard from him anymore. Like the account stopped, the 3D printing stopped, and so it's. Even though we may not hear of the lawsuits because it doesn't make headlines, there's probably some stuff in the background where, a
nice cease and desist, scare yourself. Number of fans.
So just because you don't hear about it doesn't mean it's not going on. So.